I wanted to do hood rat stuff for my friend.
Where your sorry hug with me?
It doesn't matter what your name is.
Oh, we running 2 times. What it do, y'all? Sound check, sound check. Is that one over? Where am I? Boom. What up, y'all? What up, y'all? Did we finish up? I tuned it out at the end there. I hit a halftime underdog with Chris Paul under steals. Yes, sir. That's a nice one. I'm not really sure why Kuminga was in there in that fourth quarter. I guess, to get him in game speed or whatever. I don't know. I play things conservatively, but Kings it is. Kings it is, right? And unfortunately, you look at Pell's Lakers, we're going to get another difficult matchup if we can get past this Kings team. I see some of y'all waiting. We're going to take some call-ins here. I'll do a better job monitoring the comments. I wanted to start, though. My guy, Anthony B., he asked me a question in the Discord last night in anticipation of this. So I wanted to lead off with that because I think it's an important one and one that people are going to be interested in. Sound check, though, before I really get started. Y'all can hear me good? He played his Andre, man. We moving him. We moving him. I'm assuming the sound is good. Okay, cool. All right, so Anthony asked this. I noticed that the rotation mistakes in all of the breakdowns are almost always the core 3. And we have the Clay don't foul moment with Kerr screaming 5 feet away that game earlier this year with 40 seconds. The core 3 to me do what they want no matter what. Do you think that this is reason for the leaving of the strong side 3-pointer wide open and the stupid low man non-switches and many of the other defensive gaffes? Or is it Kenny Atkinson being an absolute tool and not being a good defensive coordinator? Or is it all on Kerr? There's definitely an aspect of laziness with older players, and a lot of the times, it's all relative. I know we're all different ages here, but me at 40, sometimes when I get out on the court, I'm not playing in an NBA by any means a competitive game, but my mind is saying yes and my body's saying no, and my feet, I'm just like, oh, my feet are slow today, my hands are slow. So some of it is just aging, and even though you may want to get out to that corner, your body isn't in agreement, I think, sometimes with these older guys. But I had also seen a comment about this in the last YouTube video, and it was right around the notes that I made. I think that the root of the issue is Kerr's philosophical principles and the way he had success early on in small ball. I know a lot of people are frustrated with it, but what Kerr, it doesn't seem to have adjusted to is, one, clearly the league has, the 3-ball is much more prolific. There are much less non-shooters on the floor for every team at any given time, right? And then you don't have Andre, Sean, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Durant, right? It was more personnel-based than system-based. So like this tag the low man, and it's kind of an old school mentality of stop the roller and all these things. It worked because you had KD and Andre and Harrison Barnes, and these big wings flying back out to the perimeter. It doesn't work with Chris Paul, Steph Curry, and Podziemski. So I think the root of it is Kerr's philosophies and his lack of adaptability when it comes to this, because it wasn't your defensive scheme, bro. It was the personnel. And to me, a sign of a great coach is you design around your personnel. You don't try to fit your personnel into your system. And I get it; it's a little bit of chicken and egg, especially when you're you're in lockstep with your general manager or you're at your college program, right? You recruit into your system. You want to recruit or draft players that fit your system. I get it. But sometimes you have to adjust around the personnel you're given, you know? But yeah, I wanted to open up with that. That UFC was crazy. I got a bunch of UFC thoughts that we can get into here. But let's start here with a call in. My guy Zach, give you a second here. You ready? It looks like he's just on audio. Presets. Up, he dipped. All right, we're moving on. It looks like two of y'all with a jersey. Gil, y'all probably just got done watching this thing.
What's good, Alec?
What's good, Alec?
What's up, y'all? Hold on. Let me. There we go. There we go. I'm still learning. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
Good. Good, bro.
What's good? We had a question about Kuminga.
Go for it.
So Kuminga kind of came on the scene like earlier this year, had a bunch of straight games with like 20 plus, and then obviously he had like some injury troubles, was out for a little bit, and so like he came back and he kind of looks like a different player. So like, what are your thoughts on what's going on with his injury, or like how do you think he'll perform in the play-in when like the games actually start to matter?
Well, right. So it led off with the knee tendonitis. The knee soreness is a very vague thing, and I've been watching the league long enough where you can get nervous depending on who it is. Just ask Lonzo Ball, right? It can go south, and I talked a little bit about tendonitis and just the treatment of it, and perhaps fixing his mechanics. So when it was a breakdown a couple games ago where I slowed down. Kuminga basically jumps off 2 feet at full speed in transition, and it's not something that many people can do physically. Most people's bodies won't allow him to do it, and it looks crazy. That's why he just like it's shot out of a cannon. But it's putting a lot of strain on that knee, and I think that he's going to have to learn to finish off 1 foot, especially when he's like going 100 miles per hour. But I'm not too concerned about that. The tailbone thing, I was surprised that he played today. I guess my thought is if he could have played today, why didn't he play against the Pels? Yeah. But yeah, man, I mean, I think he's still on course. I think I think that there's ebbs and flows of a season, and I'd like to see him focus a little more defensively. And I think that he stopped taking that mid-ranger. Someone had also brought up he stopped that pump fake that was just devastating early in the season. And sometimes I think, like we all do, right, where if you say, okay, in my life right now, I'm going to focus on something, on this. Like, this is new. I'm adding this to my routine. Sometimes you neglect something that you've already been doing. And so I think it's just him striking a balance of moving the ball, making the right play. It's tough to be in rhythm. When I always talk about it with Draymond, though, when you catch on the wing and you're being told, hey, check where Steph is, check where Clay is. Okay, now go. Right. And it really freezes Wiggins the most. Kuminga's better at it than him, but I think he's on trajectory. How are y'all? So you think that he's had he's fallen off or he's not playing as well?
I mean, he had one pretty good game. I don't know who was up against. It might have been Jazz or something. But then he had a couple like stinkers of like single-digit points. So
yeah, I thought today would have been a good chance for him to get his feet back under him or something, because not too high the stakes and with no Steph either. But I mean, we'll see, I guess, how Sack looks, and we'll see. Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask y'all this: would you be willing to, let's say, this Sack game? Let's just say we get in. It would have to be who's the 1 seed of right now? Minnesota. That's still being decided.
OKC, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But let's say somehow we get to OKC. Are you all right with riding and dying with Kuminga in the series 30 minutes?
I think we have to. Honestly,
I think our vets are a little too old to like ride through with them through a 7-game series.
Yeah, and I think OKC is honestly the most ideal, considering Cat came back to Minnesota, and obviously we want to dodge Denver as long as we can. So I think OKC is the most ideal situation. So we kind of got to ride with Kuminga at that point. Yeah,
I agree, especially in that. And I think styles make fights, and in that matchup in particular, you need to match their athleticism, right? It'd be one thing if it was a Denver team where I think maybe he could get manipulated out there by Jokic like they all do. But I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too concerned about it long. I was more concerned about the tendonitis, and I just think that listen, I joke he's made of vibranium. I mean, that fall the other night, right? He's just built different.
Yeah.
But if I were evaluating him in the offseason, I was part of his camp or whatever you want to call it, I would discuss the mechanics of jumping off 2 feet at full speed.
Yeah.
But I'm not too worried about his production. And there was other people eating the offense. The offense changed a little bit in that period of more pick and roll based, a lot of GP2, a lot of trace, and he wasn't. So some of it is just that. It's just opportunity.
Right.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, long time patron. See you out.
Thank you.
I appreciate y'all. All right, y'all. Let me check the comments here real quick. And for those of you that do call in, if you can leave the studio or whatever they call it after, so more people can fill in if they want to. Not sure how many people will hop in today. I know Sundays people are doing a lot. Probably a lot of people weren't even tuning into this game at this point, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a breakdown. I know I'll have a handful of people that are like, oh, okay, I need to see the game. Maybe it'll be a quick one. I don't know how much I have to say about today's game. I probably have more to say about the Jazz and Johnny Juzang. They have some nice players. But just scanning these comments here real quick. Chance of a deep playoff run. I don't like it. I don't like the chance of it, but I think that the temptation is this team has proved us wrong so many times. I won't say us, me, and like when you have Steph Curry and you have these historic guys, even if they're more in the twilight, I think it keeps belief higher than it would if you were, in other circumstances. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about a deep run. I think I'd be surprised if we make it out of this play-in, if we're being honest here, just because, again, the gas tank that was used this final month of the season, and we're still going to have to play. We're either going to and no disrespect to the Kings, but we're still going to have to either go to New Orleans or Los Angeles to even get in. So it's a steep climb, but hey, if Clay hits 11 threes or Steph hits 12 threes, right? I mean, any given Sunday, as they say, has kind of become part of the NBA with the way the threes fluctuate. All right, let's try Gil. What's going on, Gil? Maybe you got to unmute your mic. All right, we'll go back to Gil. It's Zach. What's going on, Zach?
Hey, man.
How you doing?
Oh, living the dream, bud. How about you?
This has been a stressful season covering the Warriors, or just a long one, because there's been so many. What do you keep hearing that stat of clutch games?
Yeah, it felt like 4 or 5 seasons in one, man. It was just, it was horrible.
Yeah, so you're with me, right? And just covering it and having to go to some of these games and the next day was exhausting, man. But here we are.
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast, so I was up till almost 1 a.m. watching them. So early mornings the night for work and stuff. It was terrible, but got to do it, right?
I salute the time windows. I know there's other patrons like overseas. They're like, oh, I'm up at 4. I'm like, damn, dude, commitment. But even 3 hours is drastic, because I'm tired when the game's over at 10 p.m. over here, 11 p.m. Did you have a question for me, Zach? You had a question, Zach?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, just kind of how long you thought they were gonna make it in the playoffs, but someone already kind of asked that. But no, just glad things are going good, man.
Right on.
I'll let you get to another caller here.
All right, appreciate you, Zach. Yeah, I mean, and those of you that have been following the channel know I'm glass half empty type of dude. So I'm gonna guard my little feelings but if objectively speaking, like if you are not a Warriors fan and you just watch the NBA or covered the NBA, I mean, I think that most fans would say, yeah, I don't know about the Warriors getting out this year. Everyone's been calling for our demise for so long, but I think the Kings is a favorable match. If we could just blow the door off the Kings somehow in Sacramento, and where it's not somehow not a strenuous game, even though it's setting up for essentially a game 7, I would feel a lot better about the second game and traveling there. But we'll see. Let's see if my guy's ready here. Is he cooking? You ready? Yeah. What's good, brother?
What's good, man? I was just putting my chicken for marination for dinner.
Okay.
had you on the side. Hey, man, before I get into my question, thank you for the season. I know this is like pretty much what you do, but it's still so strenuous. It's hard enough like for me to follow it full time, watch all your breakdowns. I can't imagine the work that goes into making all of them. So I want to just send that out there. Appreciate you a lot. So this is kind of an impromptu question, not directly focused on this season, but I was shooting around with my friends, shooting the shit, shooting the hoops. The courts were empty. We were just talking about the NBA. And, as you were just saying, people have been preying on our demise for so long. They're so sick of seeing us happy these last 10 years. They were saying like, yeah, like the Warriors are just cooked. Like what like after Stephen, Clay, and Dre are gone, like they're in a horrible spot. And then I was arguing with them. I was saying that we're not. Like we're actually like this at least when you compare us to our peers in the sense that other teams with dying stars. Look at the Clippers, the Lakers, maybe the Suns to some degree. We could be in a much worse spot. I just wanted to hear your thoughts. And then to that they said, like, but look at the league. Every team has a young star. The Warriors have maybe Kuminga. And then I was trying to tell them, like, listen, we got 2 all rookies. Moody might come into it. We still got Wiggins as an asset, but they weren't listening to it. They don't follow the Warriors enough. But I just wanted your thoughts on that. Like, how do you actually see us, at least compared to some of the other teams that were in similar situations, contending situations, maybe going all in 2 or 3 years down the line?
Right. I feel you. It's like, it's all relative, right? So comparing it, because the Suns, I've heard people make the case they're like in the worst position out of anyone in the Western Conference with what they've done and how it's gone. The Clippers, I expect them to implode. So yeah, it's relative to what else is around you. I do think that we tend to overvalue young players, our own young players, So like if you are talking to a Knicks fan or somebody and Kuminga though, he's going to be a legit number 2, they'll look at you crazy. Most people that don't, follow as closely. But I think that it's been very hard it's going to be very hard to gracefully pass the torch to the young guys just because of how long this greatness has gone. And the 2 timeline story, I think Lacob and them thought like the championship year 22, they thought that was going to look like it does now. And right, they were kind of anticipating the fall off too quickly. So it's going to be hard to pass the baton. But I think we're in a relatively good spot as far as the how do you land a star player? So OKC, Minnesota, that sale didn't go through, right? The old owner is still there. So I don't know where you put Minnesota. Like this could be, obviously they have Ant, but like OKC, who else are we looking at as far as a absolute Western Conference team that has a better, brighter future without a doubt?
Yeah, for sure. Quick follow-up. So that conversation led into me saying, listen, like the Warriors are now a blue chip organization. Like they're in a great city and they're like, free agents will want to come to us. Yes, of course, it wasn't a blue chip organization before Steph. That's not the point. It is now. When, say, in 5 or 6 years, when there's a free agent, there's a certain level of organizational pedigree along with the city and the economy and the location. Do you feel like the Warriors are like that? And my friends, the counterpoint was, well, they're like, what if the Warriors are like the Bulls? What if like you have these like the 90s with Jordan, he leaves and like they have this like kind of high, like, oh, people might come, there's this pedigree to it, but then they're just kind of stuck in mediocrity for 20 years. Was that because the Bulls were just poorly run, or was there something else there? Because I'm too young to like know exactly what happened after that.
Right. No, I think the Bulls was a combination of things. What I'll say is I'm confident in Joe Lacob in the ownership group and in what their motives are. Now I think it is debatable how appealing it is to come play in the Bay Area because of everything surrounding it right now. Just the tech crash, taxes, right? I don't know if it's as appealing as Californians maybe think it is. And I know I'm an ex-Californian, but I was born and raised there. But you know what I mean. But so I don't know how appealing that is. But I just think that Lacob is just he's a top owner, and they have understanding doing things. Now you got to have some luck. I think that the curious thing this offseason, listen, we may be entering the offseason super early. It's no secret, but it's going to be it's like a crossroads. This is truly, I think, a crossroads offseason. Are they going to like try to go get Paul George or like some other 30-plus-year-old star and like just try to make one more run around it? Or is this going to end ugly against Sacramento on Tuesday and then they just lean into it like the Clay thing? So I think it's hard to say right now, like the exact future. We hit on Pods, we hit on Trace. I like Gee. Moody, it's too hard to judge him because of the lack of opportunities. I still think he has a chance. But I don't think, we don't have that young franchise player. I don't think Kuminga is going to be a number one option. I think that's too optimistic, right?
Yep. No, I agree. But yeah, all things said, I'm still very optimistic about the young core that we have to potentially build it around someone. And then, yeah, man, thank you for your time. I know it was a little bit out there, not necessarily about the game in a few days, but I appreciate your time. I like picking your brain.
I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
See you.
Got Ben here. I'll check the comments. Yeah, I had brought it up. Shout out Neil X, longtime patron. He's heavy in the comments, and he had brought it up. Maybe how sometimes you hear or you see something, but you don't register with it, and then you think it's your own thought. Maybe that's what happened, or maybe we just thought of the same thing. But he had brought up a Sabonis Trace Jackson comparison, I guess, and I thought the same thing. I was watching him. And I think they're around, Sabonis is maybe a little bigger, right? A little bit. They're around the same size, but watching his passing, his motor, and I was thinking like, I think, look, they're not the same player, but I think Trace could be every bit as good as Sabonis. And then I started playing with this Sabonis Bam kind of like splice combo. And when I say that, I don't mean, Trace Jackson is going to be the best parts of Bam Adebayo and the best parts of Sabonis. I'm just saying shades of both of them. Like a somewhat undersized center that has ball skills. You can like kind of run handoffs and post action, high motor, and then the Bam side of it would be defensively. Trace is getting so good in the pick and roll. I didn't foresee that in Indy. He wasn't asked to guard as many pick and rolls. I knew what he would bring to the table offensively, but I have to reevaluate Trace's ceiling this offseason because I think he could be not just a starting center, but again, I'm throwing his name around with Sabonis and Bam, and that caliber of guy is what it looks like I think his ceiling could be. And speaking of this Kings matchup, hey, I think the biggest thing, and we can talk about Kerr, we can complain about things. Did you see Kerr? There was a clip, I think it was this afternoon, where he said, honestly, I think he said, frankly, I wish I would have played Trace more against the Pelicans. And we're all like, yeah, you think? You think they were what? You think so? So maybe that was an aha moment for him because if you recall when we played the Kings, I know there was a bunch of matchups, but that early one, early in the season, and Trace popped out. It was like, Trace is going to play. This was before he was in the rotation. And he matched up with Sabonis brilliantly. And it was like, okay. And so I hope that he gets heavy minutes in this matchup. I love the fact that Looney's battery is charged up for this matchup. Obviously, Monk has been a thorn in our side. They have less handoff options, but they have, in turn for that Mike Brown's leaned into the more of the hustle effort guys, right? Yeah, I'm excited about Trace, man. Ben's been waiting here. Let's see if he's checked in. What's good, Ben?
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good, man. Ready for this play-in.
So, I have a question actually about the Lakers and Pelicans matchup. I think that they're playing for the 7-8 right now. So do you think, right now I think they're slated to the winner of that plays Denver. Do you think that the Warriors are in a pretty crappy situation because, if that, when that game happens, can one of those teams is just going to be like, all right, I don't really want to win this game if it's, looking like it, and I don't really want to play Denver in the first round. Do you think that they both get home court advantage of the winner of the Kings versus Warriors? What are your thoughts on that?
So you're saying the Tuesday Pels Lakers game, one of them they're gonna tank to get out of that seventh seed?
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that, but like if it gets to that point, if it's, 10 points left with 7 minutes, I don't know if that, anyone can come back there, but like why try if you know you're gonna go play Denver in the Mile High City, It's like I think it's just a crappy situation to be in for the 7-8, and maybe that's why the Warriors maybe dodged it because they knew that, they saw the Spurs beat the Nuggets a couple days ago. They might have been playing during the same time, but I just think that, that's not a spot the Lakers or Pelicans want to be in right now. And if they lose, they stay at home court the next game. I think it's a tough situation.
No, I hear you. I had brought it up when we were still possibly going to be the eighth seed a game or two ago. I think it was before the Pelicans game, and I was like, "Yo," because everybody was eyeing the top two, right, or the top three: Minnesota, Denver, and OKC. And it was like, well, you do kind of want to avoid Denver. They catch Minnesota, it looks like they're going to lock it in, and then that Devonte Graham floater, that's devastating. That was a little bit of payback though for that Jokic half court floater, man. That was nuts. No, I see what you're saying. I don't think you can risk it. I don't think I understand. You just have to. And you always hear like the old school, Darvin Ham's old school. You don't want to tempt the basketball gods of trying to like manipulate your positioning. It usually backfires. But yeah, no, I mean, if we can get it could set up that's what I think it was Slater from the Athletic and the Athletic boys. Shout out Marcus Thompson. They were saying, they basically indicated, because you can tell with them that they are having these conversations that they can't say verbatim, so they just kind of like leak the tea leaves of it. And they were indicating the Warriors' ideal path would be Kings, get in, see Thunder. And they'd kind of had that circled. So we're still in place to do it. How much will you have left? And yeah, I think that they're the Thunder. SGA, I would argue, is after Jokic probably the biggest like individual problem. Luka. Those like Jokic, Luka, and SGA are the three most individual problem. Like if you want to say best player in the series and how do they take over. However, their lack of experience, they're not that big either. It's not like we're going to play small anyway. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think it would be huge if we could somehow beat this Kings team comfortably. It sounds silly right now today, but hey, again, if it's Clay or Steph Heater, and maybe it works out.
And then another question is like, the way the Warriors have played this season, at least after the All-Star break, I think their record was top third or second overall maybe in the West. But they stayed because they didn't do the work in the beginning. They stayed around the the 9th and 10th seed. But I think they were like 21-10. Do you think it's more likely that if this season just we lose the play-in game, do you think it's more likely that we run it back again, saying, oh, we know Clay can stay on the bench. We know that we have Trace Jackson. We know, Wiggins can, you're banking on Wiggins showing up mentally, and you just kind of got to fill in that, number 2 spot where Clay used to be with either Pajemski or, do we run Chris Paul back? That's my question. Are they going to likely run it back, do you think, or do you think they just blow it up?
Yeah, I think that it would be fool's gold to look back in hindsight and say, oh, if we didn't blow these 5, and then the Draymonds, my eye test, my gut tells me that when you compare them to the rest of the Western Conference, that we're not. What are you trying to do? If you're just trying to get a couple home playoff games, then run it back. But if you truly are trying to contend, I think that there needs to be significant movement. So, but yeah, I could easily see, right? There is that conversation like, well, like it was a fluky season. We're actually really good. If you look at this metric and these numbers, my night to night eye test, it felt like there were too many games and periods of times in games where it was like, dude, we're not as good as this team. Like, that's how I feel. So I'd look for something more significant. I could see Chris Paul taking a David West like deal. I don't at this point, like he could chase money. I mean, who am I to say what type of offers out there? I'm not sure what other place would be enticing for him, unless he looked at what the Warriors were doing and was like, "Oh, y'all ain't gonna contend." Like, we know Chris wants to contend, but I don't know where he's going to get like a $15 million deal or $20 million deal. He might just take a vet min and stay. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But what I wanted to say was, and I'll let you go, Ben, here in a second, but is, and do you have any other questions, Ben?
I actually have one more quick question, but you can continue.
This happens so often with players. It's part of sports. It's part of the debate, right? But you start to defend a player or you don't like a take, and then you kind of get out of pocket. It seems like you're playing favoritism or whatnot. But I had been on the side of like, Podziemski's getting too much hate this year. Like, he's a 19th pick rookie. Yes, we're playing him too much. But what I think I concluded was, I think Chris Paul might be, and it's not even Chris Paul's fault, because of course Chris Paul wants to play and compete, but his presence on the roster this year has allowed Kerr to play hella small. Like, just the trace minutes against the Pels. If it seems as though Chris Paul has been guaranteed like 28 or 30 minutes, and it seems silly. And if you just removed him, all of a sudden, that's more Kuminga minutes. That's more Trace minutes. That what inevitably we'll play bigger. And so it's not Chris's fault himself, but his presence has forced Kerr into these small lineups. And I don't know if it's his politicking, if Kerr feels like he owes it to him because of his status. But I don't think it was, if the root of this small, because I think a lot of people were kind of blaming his love of Podziemski. The root of it is the 30 minutes of Chris Paul every night.
And my last question was, what do you do with Wiggins and Kuminga? Are you still off the Wiggins train? I mean, the way that Wiggins has played at the end of this season has been, you're like, oh, now you're finally here. Can you do that for a whole season again? But then you look at Kuminga's potential and be like, can you be the starting, number 3 on this team at 3 in, small forward position? But you can't play Kuminga at the 4 because you need Draymond at the 4. You can't play Draymond at the 5 all season because that'll just kill him and you're too small. And you don't want to pull Kuminga off the bench every year. So how would you handle that situation if, going into this offseason?
Yeah, these are big thought. I'd have to put a lot of,
yeah.
My immediate thought was, I think Trace is our starting center moving forward, right? And so now you're not bringing Draymond off the bench. So he's they're paired in the front court, and it's a tough sell to put Kuminga at that 3 spot at the way he's shooting at this point. Now, does he have a summer of work? And I think Kuminga shoots it. His confidence is so elite. He shoots it enough. He shoots it well enough. But my eye test says it's never going to be prolific. It's never going to be like, oh, I want Kuminga to shoot 10 threes. It's just his release is too low. It's just he's not a shooter, but he can make shots. And so I think that may be part of the discussion, is if we're penciling in Trace at the 5 long term, does that sway them towards Wiggins if they're making this decision? My personal thing is, I will bet on Kuminga's competitive spirit over Wiggins' more refined skill set. If we had to make the choice, I would just look at the ceiling of Kuminga and his competitiveness. Yes, he makes mistakes and he isn't as refined as Wiggins yet, but he's also 6-7 years younger. And I can live with the mistakes out of aggression and stuff. But Wiggins is just it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't care if he's shooting 43% from the left wing, Fitz. I don't care. So I don't know if that answered it for you, but.
Oh yeah, no, because again, you put what in the King series last year. What does it look like if Kuminga's guarding Fox the whole series? But you can put Wiggins on Fox. You can put Wiggins on the primary guard. But at what cost? In the regular season, is he going to show up that day? Because Kuminga will show up no matter what. Maybe he may be playing bad, but his aggression is going to be there 100%.
Right.
But
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was going to let you go.
All right, Ben. Yeah, I'll appreciate you. I'll move on and I'll finish up with my answer with it. But I appreciate the questions.
I appreciate you. Keep it up.
Thank you. The other thing that I would say about Kuminga is, and I have obviously the benefit of doing the tape and looking at the video, but like you can in real time see him learn. Now we've talked about the defensive angles. There are some warts like all players have. And like, you know, there are people that I think are a little strong on. They're like, he's just not good. It's like, oh, okay. But like the defensive angles and he can get over aggressive and get very, he can get tunnel vision, both offensively and defensively, either like following the ball or just like seeing what he sees. And that is really a trait of a nuclear athlete, right? Because it's just like, I'm going to win this. Like, but his ability to learn in real time. And I've so many times I've seen him make a mistake. And then later in the game, he's like, no, I know I made that mistake. Like, don't make the same mistakes over and over again. Outside of the defensive angles thing, which is very difficult to teach, I'm confident in his ability to learn from his mistakes. You got to put him in the spots to learn from him. And when Ben brought up the Sacramento series and Kuminga in place of Wiggins, maybe you don't win the series, but maybe Kuminga is much better for it. And that's like we started off here with the two guys that called in. Like, are you guys willing to live with the lumps of Kuminga in his progress right now? And that's where, again, the baton, that's what the passing the baton, it can't be graceful because you got Steph, Draymond, and Clay with the clock ticking, looking at Steve, and they're like, well, Kuminga's got to figure this out in real time. It's a catch-22. It's a catch-22. His attitude is bad. He's a big-time sulker, George says. You know, I'm assuming you're talking Kuminga. Yeah, you can tell he has a short fuse temper. And you know, the body language can be bad, but if we're keeping it a buck, Steph has terrible body language. You want to talk about a sulker? Maybe you were talking about Steph. Steph's the biggest sulker on the team. Oh, poor me. You know, I mean, that's I get it. You'd love for it not to be, right? Like Chris Paul, in my opinion, I'm trying to rack my brain. You want to talk about solid body language, and he's had to do all the little things, the point guard at that size, right? But he's always chest out like, it's okay. It's okay. We about to do this. You know what I mean? But that's not everybody. Kuminga's still a kid. Moody's got great body language. Moody has to be, and it's, what's the term? I don't know what the term is, but Moody's shot selection isn't the greatest, but Kerr's tight leash is feeding into his bad shot selection. I think Moody gets out there and sometimes he jacks up a couple shots because he's like, I don't know when I'm finna play. I got to show something here. And so it just feeds his bad shot selection, as opposed to if he had a carved out 20 minutes, I think he'd be more patient. And I think we saw that with Kuminga when he finally got his minutes carved out. It was like, okay, watch, I can play make. I don't have to be super thirsty. I think that's what Moody's been dealing with. Chris has been waiting here. What's going on? You there? All right, we'll give you a minute here to figure out your mic settings here. I'll come back to you. What about Keith? You there, Keith?
Yo, what's up, Alchemy?
What's going on, man?
Now, my only question today is, since the season just ended, like, what would you give a end season like grade to each of our players?
Oh, you're gonna have to wait for a YouTube video on that one. That's gonna take a while.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, I feel you.
What is there? Give me 2 or 3 that you're most curious in.
2. I guess I'll start with Steph. Just the big 3: Steph, Clay, and Dre.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. Steph, my immediate, I don't want to like overthink it. My immediate thought was like a B or B minus.
I was thinking that too, like B, because he hasn't played to like his standards, and obviously you've said many times, like in the beginning of the season, like he had such a heavy load, and he was just, he was over dribbling. He had all these issues, and that came to bite him back in the butt later on in the season. So I agree with you right there.
Okay, yeah, and you remember early, like that first 10 games, I was like, hey, I know y'all are excited about this. This is not the recipe for a 36-year-old guard.
Yeah, for real. Do you think he'll make All NBA this year?
Oh, I haven't looked at it. He'll make a second, right? I don't know about the first team.
Because the guards so far, I think everyone's talking about Brunson being first team. Obviously got Luka, Shea. So I don't know. I think he'll make second or third, but I don't know.
Yeah. He got to get in there, but I don't have a problem putting Brunson over him. Like, I know people don't want to hear that, but we got to be real here.
Nobody wants to hear that, but that's true. Yeah, I think he's leading in clutch player of the year. If that's the only thing so far, but yeah, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean that's a cool award. He has statistically, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
He has been better in the clutch, and it does seem like he needs to like get the smelling salt sometimes. And by the fourth quarter, you're like, all right, here he comes. He's gonna wake up. I expect him to adjust this offseason. And I had said that I think his assists have been way up, and with Trace now in there, I think it takes so much pressure off him coming off those screens. It's so as just a weekend Warrior basketball player though, like if every time you came off a screen they just showed two at you, how many times do we see Draymond just standing? He sets the screen and then he just stands at 30 feet and he's like, cook, Steph. That's exhausting. So I expect Steph to kind of reevaluate and adjust, but I am a little I think there was a little old man pride with Steph, and it's only natural, but I think that SGA and like we're seeing this new generation ushered in. And part of it, Steph has kind of been like, hey, like, don't forget about me now. Like, I still can do this. And you'd see him get maybe a little out of pocket, just over dribbling and trying to show out, put a little more sauce on his scoring to just remind people.
Yeah, I completely agree with you right there. So what about Clay?
Clay's been, I'll give him a B to B plus. I know I'm hanging in this safe area but I'm giving my initial thoughts on it. But I think this last since post All-Star break, like and part of it was maybe me adjusting. Now everyone, I think they all talked about his adjustment when Kerr finally sent him to the bench and he kind of reevaluated. All right, I've got nothing to prove, and then when that move happened, right, it seemed like he was just playing lighter. What I meant with my adjustment was I came to a conclusion that we have to. I think I said it was 3 shots if I can remember right. I was like, you have to understand there's going to be 3 shots from Clay in a game that you're not going to like, at least. There's going to be the one, I'm just taking the first one, I don't give a fuck. There's going to be the heat check, right? And it may not be a heat check. And then there's probably going to be the like end of clock or like I just, the Clay being Clay. I'm just going to take it down.
And what I've noticed with Clay, like a lot of the shots he takes, like if he missed like this last, let's say 2 weeks, he's been on a heater. Like I'm thinking in my head while watching the games, like, if he's missing a lot of these shots, like we would be on his ass for it. You know what I mean? Like if he was missing a lot of, like he'd be taking heat. Like if he has like 18 in the second quarter, he takes a lot of heat checks. Like cool, he made it, but like if he missed this, like what's the story? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
and I think, but yeah, it's who he is. It's just who he is. And I think I kind of was just like, all right, we got to accept who he is. But you have to, the staff and his teammates have to help him. Just like I say with Draymond, help him help himself.
Yeah.
And like there was I think it was the Pels game. Steph had just checked in the fourth quarter, and Clay he had made a couple shots. He catches it with a triple threat. He pivots around, and Steph just stands at the midcourt and doesn't move. And then Clay's like, all right, I'm gonna take it then, and he takes a bad shot.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Right. And so some of it is Steph being older and carrying too much of the load as the season goes on. Like, I don't know if he takes those. I'm more confident in Clay's ability to assess, all right, Steph's going. Moses has got 25. Kuminga's going. But when the team is struggling for offense and we've got these funky lineups out there and you put them out, you're putting them in a position to just go Chuck mode. They got, don't put him in those positions sometimes.
And I think he's been playing a lot better too since he got out his head about like how he used to be and everything. I think you had talked about this too. Just like this last 2 months, he's been playing way better prior to when he wanted to become an all-star. So yeah, I agree with you right there.
Yeah, and I have been impressed with his finishing. I know he struggled. He's going to struggle against like athletic shot blockers, but he's finishes with the left hand and he keeps it very simple and fundamental, right? Sometimes he just one steps it because he's so big. Like he'll cut, he'll just immediately jump off the first step he takes, and then he'll go to that left hand. But his finishing's been good, and I think that I'd like to see him as the 6th man on a nice team friendly deal. But You know, we don't get what we want, right? But
Yeah. So what about Draymond?
Draymond, I'm thinking C. I'm thinking C. And it's the accumulation, right? If we were just saying when Draymond's playing, what am I giving him now? He might have he might be a B plus. Like
A
when
B plus, yeah.
when he's been playing and like there hasn't been extra, you could argue has been better than them based off of the other two based off expectations, right? Like he's hitting the 3 at a career high, and he's still showing he can when he's up, when his engine's up and he's playing. I could grade him out the highest. But all the extracurriculars, and you know, it adds up. It's part of the equation, right? And the other thing that I think I might have said this last live stream. Obviously, I know about podcasting and sports media a little bit. Like, if I'm Lacob, I'm not in love that he's doing this Draymond Green show during the season again. Like, he will have a shitty game, get on his podcast, and start big up in the team that lit him up. Like, I feel a type of way about it. I don't like it, but I get it's a hustle, it's a money thing. What I would say is, I think what we're going to start to see, and I understand a lot of players are doing it now. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I think we're going to start seeing that written into the new contracts. You can or you can't. Now, Draymond would probably have fought to have it written in that he can, but I think we're going to start to see that written in. Like, you cannot, you know, podcast or whatever, certain media obligations in the season, because. Yeah, I don't know. I
don't like it either, but I just remember, I think you had tweeted this out when we got blown up by the Celtics. It was what was it? You were like, Draymond's about to post some Jaylen Brown was absolutely incredible. Man, that had me dying. I was because that's the timing he be on. But yeah, I completely agree with you, bro. And maybe one last one, our rookies. What would you grade our rookies this season?
I mean, again, I gotta just give you initial. I'm thinking A's.
Yeah,
and it's because of where again, it's relative to where the value is. We're looking at a 2nd round pick and the 19th pick. If Podziemski was picked number 5, then maybe you give him a B, right, or a B minus. You get B minus because of expectations and value. But from where you got them, the system fit, their character, and I think it's been undervalued. How much, and I know Pods is kind of like a teacher's pet. He's smart about it, right? But he's really endeared himself to the big 3. Both of them have. Clay has more career assists to Trace Jackson than any other player, I bet, at this point. And we're talking half a season. Yeah. So not only did we hit in value and system fit, but personality-wise, the vets have truly embraced him. Now, you saw them try to embrace Poole. You saw them try to embrace Wiseman. Kuminga's been a little rougher, right? But Kuminga is an alpha. So I'm all right with Kuminga's little attitude when you had that talent. You want that edge. But they fit personality-wise, so I got to give them an A right now.
Yeah, I agree. A plus. I think Trace so far, I think Trace, in my opinion, has been better for what we need, because obviously we need size. He brings finishing, a vertical spacing, and then Brandon he's really surprised me, because I didn't think he was coming to the season. I didn't think he'd even get minutes, honestly, because we already loaded guard heavy, and he found his way. And I think the game that we all looked at was the one game Draymond choked out Rudy Gobert with him and Clay, and then he came in and had that crazy 3rd quarter.
Yo, what's so crazy is you just saying it casually. You know that game where Draymond choked out Rudy Gobert?
I mean, we used to it. But yeah, that's the game we all seeing Pods was okay, he could do some. But my main issue, and you was just talking about this, is Steve Kerr with Trace, because let's say beginning of the season he gets no play time, then he has a game where he shows out, and then Kerr's gonna go on the podium and talk about we gotta play him more. He plays him for 2 games and he don't play for 3 months. Then he comes in again. And it's that's been the process all season up until this last month, where he's finally slotted him in the starting lineup, and we just been rolling with him ever since. And if we started him since, let's say, November, maybe this season looks different. You know what I mean? Maybe it looks completely different. But yeah, so I think Trace has been the best rookie so far for our team.
I'm not mad at that. Yeah, and his ceiling. Here's what I'd say with Pods is it, again, the expectations and the value. When we were struggling, Wiggins was a no-show. Clay was shooting miserably. Right now, all of a sudden, and Podziemski's playing too many. He was playing too many minutes, but all of a sudden, you needed production from him. right? But
Mhm.
if the team was performing how they should, Wiggins, Clay, and let's say we add someone else, and now it's a bonus production. He comes in, makes the hustle plays, takes a charge, gets some rebounds. Now you're like, oh, Pods is like, that play was huge for us.
Yeah.
But the perception changed when it was like, dude, Pods, we need like 15 from you, dog. It was different. You know what I mean? But I agree, Trace's ceiling. I have to reevaluate it.
Mhm.
But
yeah, man, that's all I got. Appreciate you for your time, man. Thank you.
All right, Keith. You know, I think too, Kerr, how many times have we heard Kerr? It's been like a running joke where he's like, oh, I should have played Trace more. I should have went back to Kuminga. I should have, right? It sounds like he has a real problem in live game time of his rotations and who's there, right? He needs someone. Atkinson clearly ain't doing it. I ain't listening to video, dude, homie. Did y'all see the chart? There's a chart out there from what's the dude that does all the plot mapping of stats, and it was NBA coaches challenges, and they were, the scatter chart, and then Kerr's was like way back. But my point I'm getting at is he needs someone designated on the bench, I think, to help him with rotation choices, because at this point I do kind of think he just forget it. It's not like forgetting, but he's going with his nerve, and I think when he looks down the bench, back to my Chris Paul point, when he we need a timeout, there's a run. When he looks down the bench, he sees Chris Paul. He sees the point guard, the Hall of Fame point, and so he's coming off, and he doesn't even see. It's not even in consideration. It's like a blind spot to him. So he needs some help with it. He needs some help with it, man. Two here not connected. All right. Any questions from the comments? Kuminga B+. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut that up for some YouTube views on those grades, but I want to go more in depth. Yeah, he does. He galaxy brains. It's just like, what are you doing? And I get it. I've been obviously coaching at super low level, but I think that some of the same things still happen. And when you're an assistant coach, you can see way more. But when you're the head coach, you do sometimes get caught in the forest and you can't see the tree. Like you'll hone in on something that's happening. Like, for instance, you'll be like, Kuminga, we're going under whoever, non-shooter, right? And he goes over twice. And you'll hone in out of frustration. You'll hone in on some obvious mistake that we just discussed, and you lose sight of other things that you're juggling. And so he just needs, yeah, I don't know. Oh, we got a super chat. Let's go. Khalil, my guy. Did you post about the small ball lineups and how we had bigger wings? It was, what are a C major moves you could see do bolster up this lineup over the offseason? Let me reread that, bro. Okay, so major moves. We talked a little bit about it last time. The Paul George sweepstakes. I don't know exactly how I would feel if you wake up one morning and you see a Woj bomb and it's like Kuminga, like all the young stash for like just Paul George or something like that. I don't even know if it's feasible, but some sort of big shifting move where they pushed in the chips with the young guys. A lot of people I keep hearing say we're going to move Kuminga. And the negotiations, is it going to be a sign and trade? I don't know. I would understand depending on what they get back. It's always what you get back, right? But I would be upset. I think Trace, I think Dario is so bad, bro. Did y'all see Dario today? I know that he has been out. Like, I know, you got to cut him a little slack, but geez, he's like 2 beats late when he makes a pass, or like when he does something, you're like, dude, that wasn't even close, fam. Like, it wasn't like oh, you took one, he like takes 2 extra. It's just, but why I'm getting at Dario is that spot's got to be way better, right? I think Looney, you'd like Looney to get in some better shape, get a little lighter perhaps this offseason, but you need one. If Trace is going to be penciled in as the 5, you need a stretch 4. You need a bouncy stretch 4 like a Trey Murphy. And I know, shout out my guy who reminds me every time we see him that we could have drafted him And Moses Moody is a clutch agent. Draymond, what you've had some, remember Jacob Evans, Draymond? I don't know if you want to listen to Draymond in the draft room, but I don't know who the name is. Like a Markkanen seems unfeasible, right? I don't know if we can land a big money guy, but you need like essentially a healthy Otto Porter, right? I think that would go a long way with just being able to run more traditionally sized lineups. Who knows what type of steps Trace can make if the free throws go up. And I think that there is a place for Trace to attack post-ups. The way teams switch, Trace, go watch some Indiana tape. He can score on the block. I think they can add that wrinkle where, if the split action catch and he just goes to work, baseline drop step or whatever, you can add that wrinkle. But I'd like a stretch 4 that's not a defensive liability, but don't we all? Right, I think that would be. But you asked major moves. Donovan Mitchell. I'm not the biggest Donovan Mitchell guy, but it sounds like Cleveland is going to have to trade him. He ain't re-signing. Like I know that the Knicks rumor has been forever, but Brunson I think has put that out. I don't think you pair Brunson and Mitchell. And Steph and Donovan have a very good relationship. I'm sure they would green light that. Here we are, even smaller though. Right? That would make us even smaller, but that's the only name I can think of that's a major move name that, would drastically would move the needle or change what we do. But I'm looking for some shooting size and rebounding. Let's see here. Did y'all watch that UFC? Oh, we got one more call in here, and then yeah, we went about an hour. I'm gonna give my UFC 300 takes here. I know that some of you don't pay attention to MMA and you can tune out, but I enjoy. It was one of the best cards I've ever seen, and so I want to give my takes on that. A lot of F Kerrs in the comments. Yeah, a Nas Reed, and again, no one's giving these guys up. But yeah, Towns. Let's watch how Cleveland pans out here in these playoffs if they get wiped out really quick. And let's see, as much hype as Minnesota has had this season, the ownership thing is suspect. I don't know what's going on with that. But if they fizzle out and have a disappointing playoff run, do they have to choose between Towns and Nas Reed? And is there something to be had there? But I'd say Minnesota and Cleveland are the two teams right now that come to mind of perhaps poaching some of their roster because they have a disappointing playoff run. Oh, we lost him. Yeah, Cat's probably getting traded, right? And again, I respect Donovan Mitchell a little more than Cat, but I'm not a huge Cat fan. But see, he's on a supermax. That's the problem, right? That's the problem. If it was some sort of reasonable deal, I think you could sell me on him within our infrastructure, Draymond in his ear all the time, right? And just what his spacing and size would do to some of our lineups. But it seems like not possible if he's making like 250, ain't he? Is he on Supermax? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if that's even possible. And then if you could get Nas Reed off of them, boy. Minnesota, they don't want to deal with us after that Wiggins deload deal. I know Wolves fans. I had a Wolves fan tell me they won that. I was like, okay, buddy. Yeah. I don't know who's dumping on that Cat contract. Maybe and Michael Jordan, he gone, right? You can't dump your contracts on MJ anymore, can you? Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is a little overrated to me. I like him just fine, but his offense has gotten better than I ever thought it would because of that funky shot. Like I never thought he'd be able to pull up off the bounce and shoot. And to his credit, he can. But defensively, I think he's a little bit overrated because he's just too slight. He's too slight. He needs another 20 pounds. Like ultimately, you can't put him on Tatum. You can't put him on Luka. You can't put him on like these big bully wings. He's just too slight. He's great at navigating screens, but I don't think he's the point of attack defender that like he's kind of Bill does. And you know what I mean? So he's fine. He's fine, but he's certainly not. I think they found out he's certainly not a franchise player, right? Appreciate the super chat, Ryan. Trace and Draymond need more minutes together. Absolutely. We might have won that Pelicans game if Trace would have played. I don't like to do that. If you guys notice in the breakdowns, I usually don't focus on rotations unless there's something blatant. I kind of evaluate what's on the floor, right? But it seemed very obvious down the stretch once Zion got going, like that Draymond's sending him to the right and there was no resistance. He's looking over at Steph and Chris Paul at the top of their heads as he's just like hanging in the air and he's finishing. It seemed like an obvious thing. And the lob, the short roll, yeah. I mean, if Draymond can keep this 3-ball going and be willing to take it moving forward, I think that that's the pairing. How many nights are there? And you have Looney behind him, right? But how many nights are there where you're like, oh, Trace is too small to get in there, to start in there at the 5? I don't think there's that many. 4 straight baskets. Yeah, the Chris Paul thing, and that's again back to the philosophy of that low man, and they have to change that. They have to. It's imagine the difference of Andre, low man, weak side, right? There's a pick and roll, strong side. Andre's the low man, weak side, right? Of Andre, 2 feet in the paint. How many steps does it take for him to get out and get a good contest? 1.5, maybe 2, right? And then the 7+ wingspan, as opposed to Chris Paul has to take like 5 little baby steps in place. And then he puts his hands up. What's the dude in Boston, that contest where he does it from super far away? How many times have you seen CP throw his hands up? It almost looks like a toddler when they want to be, they're like, up, 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 pick me up, right? It's just like, dude, you cannot. Like, I am also curious, CP, what are you finna do in the paint? Are you getting a piece of that lob? He and Steph, I just don't understand why they sink so low. And I've seen it so many times, and I've seen all of them do it, that I have no other conclusion but that being told to do it. And so again, it goes back to Steve Kerr and the philosophy. Who's watching the tape? Y'all should hire me. I get worked up just talking about it. Uh-oh, we got a bunch of supers. Let me not miss y'all. Rich Wolf. Which Warriors are for sure untouchable? Steph, obviously, right? But would Dre, Trace, Kuminga, GP2 be realistic to keep? I think Steph's the only untouchable. And sometimes I think he's not untouchable. Now, I know that realistically you can't do that, like the optics of it, but if you're honest with yourself, right? And you're not tweeting this out or whatever, isn't there times in the seasons when it's looked bad where it's crossed your mind, like we should just trade Steph to Charlotte for LaMelo and 10 picks, right? It's not a realistic thought, but no, man, I think they could trade any of them. And I think especially if Clay bolts and this contract goes sideways, that will be like opening Pandora's box, right? Because now that they've been broken, the big three's been broken up, all bets are off. That's what I think could happen. Appreciate the super chat. SPX vibe. There is a slight idea Ingram gets moved from the Pels. He does. Yeah, Ingram, I put him in the same book as Wiggins. I do now. He is more of a scorer, right? He has more of a want to score. He's going to consistently score more. But at the end of the day, now, and Wiggins, it's like an offensive defensive thing. I think Wiggins is going to give you more consistent defensive effort in like point of attack defense. Ingram's going to give you more 25-point nights. But at the end of the day, they're cut from the same cloth. And it's kind of like, hey, do you want to play, bro? You want to play tonight? I brought this up in months ago. I'll never forget, I'm watching them in Boston. It was like 90 seconds left in the game, and there was like a ball went off someone's foot, and it rolled to midcourt, and this dude just stood while like Tatum or somebody else hustled up and got it. Like, didn't even budge. It was like, really? And I've just seen too many. The bubble was the first time I was like, all right, dude, I don't like you, bro. So his talent is undeniable. And again, at what value? If you can poach him and fit him into the roster, and it's for Wiggins, and you're selling me off, I guess, but I'm not coughing up the kitchen cupboard. I'm not coughing up Kuminga. Kuminga is twice the competitor that Brandon Ingram is. So that's my feeling on him. But I agree. He's, again, if you can get a value, if you can get 10 cents on the dollar for him or whatever, maybe. Where are we at here? Dylon. First live I'm catching. Appreciate you. Do you think we'll get rid of CP3 this offseason? I had opened up, or not, it wasn't in the opening, but I had made mention, I think I could see Chris Paul taking a vet min and staying, because we'd have to look at it. And again, a lot of this depends, and that's why I don't have as many takes for y'all on off-season moves yet. Like, we know how we feel about our players, but I think a lot is determined in the playoff outcomes. You know, is Cleveland fizzle out? Does Minnesota fizzle out? Does Boston, so you have to wait and see which teams entered the offseason truly disgruntled. Like, the Suns could be in shambles, right? The Clippers could be completely blown up. And so then now you look at these different destinations for guys, and for all I know, I'll just throw a hypothetical out. The Clippers get blown up. They're like, we're just going to retool around Kawhi. Harden's gone. Paul George went back to Indiana. I don't know, right? And all of a sudden it's like, hey, bring Chris Paul home. Let Chris Paul come back to the Clippers, and we'll give him this deal and he'll work. So that could arise. But like, sitting here today, I don't see a lot of spots where he's gonna get like a decent chunk of money and a role and an opportunity to compete. I don't think he can have his cake and eat it too. And if he's not gonna chase a check, which I don't think there's gonna be a ton of them out there, I think that he's grown comfortable here with the minutes we're giving him, certainly, and he and Draymond and Steph, and he's in California. So I could see him taking like a David West type deal and just being like, all right, I'm going to see what I can see here. Granted, the Warriors continue to go all in with the vets in the core. If Clay leaves and we shift things around and lean into the youth, then I don't see why. Maybe he'd mentor him. But I think he could stick around. But I certainly don't think, we can't pay him, right? If he does, it's going to be a team-friendly thing. I hope that answers your question. But did you see, I don't know if you were tuning in earlier, you can go and rewind it, but did you see my thoughts on Kerr and the root of the small ball? Because it's like, yeah, I'm saying this, but at the same time, if he is here, we're only going to see these small-ass lineups more and more. When Kerr looks down the bench, he just sees the point guy. He don't see his young big man. He don't see him. Why do I keep clicking on the same ones? All right, let's get this off here. Moving on. Okay, fellow transplant from Arizona. Appreciate you. We had the call in here. Yeah, man, I've been out here I'm 40, so from 20 to 40, a solid 20. I'll go to the Bay maybe twice a year. It depends. It's been less and less. And we've already got the AC on out here, man. It's like 90 here. Finally, this week, it turned over into the heat. And so getting ready to deal with that. But yeah, I appreciate you. All right, y'all. Is there one more here? Zion play like he's scared of Bron. Oh, I didn't catch it. But I did not expect them to get rolled over like that. I'll have to catch up on the highlights. Were the Lakers hitting threes? I'm assuming to be up that big on them, they were hitting threes. They were having one of those games. But I've never seen Zion afraid of anybody. I know. I'll have to check that. You getting your shot off there. I thought Draymond played scared of Zion the other night, and someone had made a valid point. They were like, he was 2 of 12 in the first half or something like that. But we loaded up on him, and that was in part. Now, they hit some crazy threes, but how they were pulling us apart defensively was having to help Draymond with Zion. And there's no shame in it. Again, he's one of 5 guys in the league that probably commands a double team regardless. But I guess I'm just used to Draymond, not wanting the help, being like, no, on an island, like, let me try and stop him. And I thought Draymond might chirp and might just bring that, like, yeah, we hear that type of energy, that Draymond energy. And there was none of that. And it kind of felt like he knew, like, man, I can't poke the bear with this big boy. But I'll have to look and see if Zion was backing down to old Bron. Daddy Bron, huh? Yeah, we don't have a draft pick this year. If you look at the history, Lacob, and it's kind of well known that Lacob is a draft nut. He loves the draft, and so I expect them to buy in. Maybe it'll be a second rounder. No, we got a second round pick in the Corey Joe deal, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to move into the first round, because I know that Lacob and the front office are just heavy into the draft. They like it. So hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. I didn't know Edward was good. From the Philippines. Salute, dog. Salute. I had seen a headline. Sometimes I get got with fake like NBA Central stuff. But I saw, did we convert Garuba to a roster spot? Garuba couldn't even get in the game today. Like maybe I misread that. Did y'all see that? Did we convert Garuba for the playoffs? Like make it make sense. Like make it make sense. Why hadn't they I thought he was going to be a situational rotation player. When we got him this in the summer, I was like, oh, like I'm not sure. I'm sure he won't like play every night, but I bet you he'll play like once a week for like 6 minutes there, 7 minutes there as just a foul trouble defensive big guy. But yeah, we did. Yeah, what? I honestly, when I saw that little clip occur today on Twitter saying I should have played Trace, I initially thought it was saying I should have played Trace from the beginning of the year. I think that's like where my mind took it. I was like, yeah, you think you should have played him against the Pels? I thought that went without even saying. But yeah, I don't know about the Garuba thing. And I know he airballed a three real bad the other day. He was like, oh God, no. Ah, when you could hear it from the rim mic. But I didn't see much of the G League stuff. I know a lot of people were asking about that. That's a summer thing for me. Summer League. And I'll maybe go back and look at some of the Santa Cruz stuff, depending on who we're keeping. Gee needs. I thought we could have used more Gee. Like he's just in there rumbling on fools, right? His energy at that size. There were so many games where you could just throw Gee out there for 6 minutes instead of Chris Paul, and I just think it would have been fine. But I don't know. We could just sit here and complain all the time. Appreciate you, Terrence. Oh, and building the support. Yeah. So obviously I'm going to cover the play-in, and hopefully we have a playoff matchup and the breakdowns. But if the Warriors don't happen to make the actual playoffs, I still will be covering the playoffs on Patreon. I'm not going to do like one series. What I'll do is it'll usually be game 3s, 5s, and 7s bouncing around the entire playoffs. Just like the games that are swing games, whether it's going to be, if it's an elimination game, maybe, and it's like a spicy one, then it might be that one. But I'm going to try to bounce around to like the bigger games throughout the playoffs. Hopefully we get at least a round with the Dubs, but the content will continue into the off season. And then I'll get into like more of these like grades and rankings and stuff like that, man. Y'all want OKC? We'll see, man. It's been a grueling year to cover because there's been so many games that come down to the final 90 seconds and they blow it. And it takes an extra emotional toll on me. Like I can't have it both ways, because I think part of my success covering the team is that I'm a fan and I'm emotionally involved and invested, right? And I care as much as y'all. But the double edge of it is I care as much as y'all. So it's taxing to cover these losses and these bad games, whereas opposed to like Anthony Slater, like, right, he's kind of objective about it. He's just like, well, what are you going to do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do that. So it's taxing. But what I'm getting at is if I have the juice by the time we get to the finals, yes, once there's one playoff series and it's the finals, then ideally I'll cover it all. You know, I'll cover it all the way through. We do have the Olympics that I'll be covering as well. That I covered that the last year, was it the qualifiers or whatever? So yeah, there's going to be content all the way through the draft and all that. And then eventually I'm going to be covering the Warriors WNBA team when that starts up, when they draft Juju and all that. Yeah. Realistically, the likelihood of this season being over is so high. It is. Do some Heat games. Yeah, man. I'm gonna try like it. It's hard to say now. Here's one that I could say right now is I'll probably do some Pacers Bucks games based off the the little beef that was stewing with that, and unless it's a blowout, right? Like I may come and do it. Like someone may say, "Hey, Alk, on the Discord or something, are you going to cover this Pacers Bucks game 5?" Right? Yeah, I'm going to cover it. Bucks win by 40. I'm not going to cover it, right? Then I'll try to bounce to something else. But yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. Well, Garuba was supposed to be that defender, man. Yeah, Garuba was supposed to be that defender. Let's see here. For about a year and some change, and picked up on a couple of things about you, but would love a mini autobiography. Okay, bet. Some off-season content, right? As we wind things down, I love the ideas in the off-season when it's not the day-to-day grind of covering this team like every 48 hours and everything's so time sensitive, right? I can kind of I can pace myself and I can do more thought pieces and get a little more creative, show a little video editing skills and whatnot. So yeah, I can do that. I can do that for sure. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think what do you think the odds are? Are the odds out on Kings Warriors? What do you think? It's Kings. I'm gonna guess it's Kings like -1.5. It's Kings -1.5 would be my guess on the thing. But what I was getting at is, I mean, I think a lot of people will favor us in this Kings matchup, but then going on the road against two teams we don't match up well against. I think I like the Pels matchup based off how they beat us down, like how we just seen them. And I think that there can be adjustments made where the Lakers, we just don't have an answer for AD. And then you're dealing with the Laker whistle as well, right? If you want to get conspiracy theory and talk about, well, if it's the Pels and Warriors in the final play-in game, who does the NBA want in the playoffs? Now, Zion, is a good story and all that, but I mean, they want the Warriors in, right? So I don't want to deal with the Laker whistle or AD. And I think that, I think that they'll be looking for their revenge on Urkel, CJ McCollum, right? And so I think at this moment now, I'd rather see the Pels if we can get past this Kings team. Yeah. All right, y'all. We went here for almost an hour and a half. I know I said I had UFC takes, but I think I'm going to save that for another video and just put it into a video so then if you're interested in those, then I'll give them to you in the next 24, 48 hours. As far as the Jazz breakdown patrons, I don't know. Maybe like an 8 or 10 minute one, show you just some highlights. We saw some of the young guys. I'm not really sure what to say about it. At about midway through the third quarter, the Warriors were like, oh, we're locked into 10. And it just became kind of like a G League game. But I'll put something out for those of you that didn't see any of it. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up. I appreciate y'all tuning in. And I'll drop a video probably on talking a little more as I think about this Kings and this matchup somewhere around when that happens Tuesday night. And hopefully we'll have more games to cover after that. I'm out, y'all.